Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
For centuries, ancient cultures knew the secrets to longevity, vitality, and healing. Now, modern science is catching up. Ageless Blueprint is a podcast that will reveal the modern secrets of better health and a better life. Join Dr. Eldred Paler here today and every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. As together we discover the secrets to better health through science and spirituality. A better life with Ageless Blueprint starts now. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to our returning visitors and for our new people who may have just found us. I'm Dr. Taylor. On my first episode, I'm so excited. We've made it past the first episode. We're on number 2. My co-host, my producer, Rebel, you'll hear from her from time to time. She kind of keeps me on track. But this is something that I have thought about and wanted to create, and here we are. And so I want to really invite you guys to be participants in this podcast. We have some questions that we had from last time, and briefly, just the last episode, I kind of told you my story. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm the son of a Baptist minister. Went to Vanderbilt University undergrad. Went to Emory to medical school. Married my lovely wife, Ava Bell Taylor. She is a physician also. And I did OBGYN, and she did family practice and psychiatry as a residency. And we practiced medicine like we were taught until we discovered that uh, some of the things that my wife was going through and I, as an OBGYN, should have been able to handle, and I couldn't, or I didn't, it wasn't working. And so we started to understand bioidentical hormone replacement. And to make a long story short, we started practicing functional medicine where we look at how the body functions and try to create normal function again. And we've been doing that for really the last 20, 25 years. We wrote 2 books called Are Your Hormones Making You Sick? And then we wrote another book called The Stress Connection. And I went around and spoke about those books for 10 years, and all the traveling wore me out. And so what happened is we just continued to practice, but now we're trying to get this knowledge out in a new way where I don't have to fly around and stay in hotel rooms. So first, we're going to get to the questions. And so you can listen to the other episode and hear more about me, but uh, I'm not important. What is important is the information that I want to relay to you. And so you can take back control of your health, kind of like we took back control of our lives and started practicing medicine a little bit differently. Uh, I want you to have that same opportunity to control your health and really to control your life. So let's go to these questions, okay, from last time. So last time, and this is the question I actually answered last time. It says because the first 7 years of your life you're really programmed, and you're talking about blueprint. You're really programmed the first 7 years of your life. You're really hypnotized. Your brain is in something called theta waves, and that's the same brain waves when hypnotists hypnotize you. So for the first 7 years, you are just you are just developing a blueprint subconsciously. You are going to mimic what your parents did or whoever was taking care of you. You're going to mimic the environment. You're going to mimic the thinking. Just think of your religion. You weren't really you were born into a religion. If you were born into a conservative family, you're conservative. If you were born into a liberal family, you're really pretty liberal. And unless you consciously try to change that thinking, you're going to subconsciously keep doing the things that you were programmed to do the first 7 years of your life. So the way to do that, you have to become conscious. You have to become aware of what you're doing, and if it's not serving you anymore, you have to figure out how to change it. And that's what we're going to try and do here, because I was able to change my blueprint and you can too. All right. So do you write the blueprint as we go along in life, or do we have it before we're born? Again, you have an original blueprint, but like with anything else, if you have, if you want to remodel your house and you want it to be new, you get a blueprint, and first you have to tear down the old cabinets, you have to get rid of the old appliances. And so there's a saying is that you can't create something from something. You got to create something from nothing. And so what you have to do is that if you have a blueprint that you don't like, you have to really destroy it. This says you have to kill your old self and you have to create a new self. Now, this is something a little bit off. Someone asked me, is that, do you find women think it's hard to be married to an OBGYN? Okay, I'm an OBGYN. I've been married for 38 years. So believe me, I don't, I stopped doing OBGYN in 2006. I delivered my last baby, did my last hysterectomy. So it's been a while. But during that time, believe me, business is business and home is home. So it's not hard to be married. You can, on a later episode, you can ask my wife. As the medical profession goes along, do doctors have to continue learning as science learns? That's what they're supposed to do. In medical school, we were told that 10 years from now, everything we've learned will be obsolete. And I've been out of medical school for over 30 years. So that information has become obsolete 3 times. And unless you actively try to learn and not learn what someone tells you. I told you in the last episode, I said medicine is about see one, do one, teach one. And that does not allow for any type of change. And so a lot of doctors are still doing what they did 30 years ago because they saw one, they did one, and then they taught one. And so that is a never ending, what I call caterpillar line. There's a saying I like to say is that when something is popular, so popular thinking, and the problem with popular thinking is that it doesn't require you to think at all. It's easier to do what other people do and hope that they thought it out. And so that's what we did in our residency. We just did what the resident told us to do, and we figured they thought it out. People smarter than us thought it out. Well, this is a concept I want to get across. Nothing is smarter than your own intuition when you are connected to your own intuition. And we can call it a gut feeling. I see patients who say, "Hey, I did this and something didn't feel right. I knew it wasn't right." And so you always want to go with your gut. And we're going to try and develop that connection to you and your gut or your intuition. All right, now let's go to these other. Now, what and when did we learn to become materialistic in life? And how can we change our thinking? Well, I think the consumerism started when we started to have credit cards and social media, because you got to think my parents never had a credit card. If they didn't have the money, they didn't buy it. Now everybody's in debt. And so we just keep buying things. And I really think we're trying to buy things to fill in this gap that we have, this disconnection from ourselves. Like I said, we don't really know what we really want. We don't really know what we really have the power to obtain or do. And so I think we start to buy things to try and fill in that void. And but when you really get connected to yourself, and I keep saying that, but when you really get connected to yourself and understand who you are and what it is to be human and what your real human needs are, then you can change how you think about this materialistic world, because what you see will pass away. What you don't see is eternal. Okay, so love and gratitude, those things are eternal. And we're trying to fill in this and this long for the eternal things that we need. And we're trying to find it in materialistic things. Where can you get our books? We wrote 2 books called Are Your Hormones Making You Sick? And we wrote this book called The Stress Connection. You're welcome to go to our website, www.taylormedicalgroup.net, and you can get it there. But here's how you can get the books. If you see scrolling across that school.com/ageless, that is a school group. And what that is that it's going to be an ongoing patient education. And we're going to talk about that. But you can go there, you can join for free for right now. And on that platform, when you join, you can download our two books as ebooks, and you can also download them as audiobooks. So that is my gift to you to try and get you to start understanding balance and harmony. Because the first thing you have to do, I think, is you have to balance your body. And the one thing, because I'm an OBGYN, you have to balance your hormones. And so that's what uh, Are Your Hormones Making You Sick is about. The other thing is about being in harmony. So balance and harmony is what this ageless blueprint is, and we'll talk about that. But the other book is The Stress Connection, and stress will kill you. The stress that you know and the stress that you don't know, and you really need to understand stress. 70 to 90% of all visits to primary care physicians are for stress-related complaints or disorders. Now, that was a study done 30 years ago. I'm sure now that is probably 98% of all visits to primary care physicians are for stress-related complaints or disorders. So go to that school.com/ageless and you can download those books. That's a gift. So how do some people manage stress more than others? And can you be more stressed than you think? Yes, you can definitely be more stressed than you think, because most people think of emotional stress. Oh, the stress of my job, the stress of my kids. But anything that is out of balance, your body sees it as a stress. So if your hormones are out of balance, that's an additional stress to whatever emotional stress that you're aware of. So if your gut is out of balance, if your nervous system is out of balance, if anything like that is out of balance, that is considered a stress. So yes, you can be more stressed than you think. And this is my four, I'm gonna give you a preview. This is my four-step stress coping. First, the number one best thing to do is to get rid of the stress, okay? Whether that's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it is a financial situation, get rid of the stress. Now, the other thing is you need to find out what physical stressors are going on. And some of them you may not know until it's obvious. You know it's a cardiovascular problem. It's obvious once you have a heart attack or once you have a stroke. So, but your cardiovascular system has probably been out of balance for a long time. And that's where functional medicine comes in. We want to know, is it functioning properly, not if it's in a disease state or not. There's a big difference between being healthy and being in a disease. And this in between here is functional. And so that's what functional medicine is about, is how can we identify those physical stressors before they become a disease state? Because I was only taught to diagnose and treat diseases, but most people have functional problems, and the root cause is stress. So you want to get rid of the stress. Now, if you can't get rid of the stress, like you have a sick child or you have a sick spouse or you're taking care of aging parents and you're the one who has to do it, then you have to change how you respond to the stress. You have to get somebody to help you. You have to, you have to meditate. You have to try and quiet your mind down so that you can think clearly how to better handle the stress. Because when you're in a fight or flight mode, it's very hard for you to think and for you to think your way out of a situation. So the third thing you can do is try to repair the damage caused by the stress. If the stress has damaged your gut, we need to try and repair it. If it's damaged your nervous system, we need to try and repair it. So you want to try and repair the damage caused by the stress. Then the fourth thing you want to do is to prepare yourself for future stress. And whether that's to continue to meditate or continue to take your supplements or whatever. But we're going to talk about that more. Our next episode is going to talk about how you can identify imbalances and stress through saliva testing. All right. Uh, do Since we're talking about, the last question is, do the levels of spit change throughout the day? The amount of spit, I guess, changes, but what we're talking about is the hormones that you're measuring. No, when you do the saliva test, you're going to do 4 samples, and they pool that together, and then they get an average, and it really doesn't change that much. Your body really works in a very small, narrow range. Your pH has to be in a narrow range. All of your body systems, they run very efficiently and very tightly. So that level of hormone, it doesn't necessarily change throughout the day on average, but in women, especially, it changes throughout the month if they're in their reproductive stage. And there's also changes as you get older, especially in women as they go through puberty and they go through perimenopause and menopause. All right. So I encourage you to ask questions. The call lines are open. At the end, we'll take some questions, and then whatever questions I don't get to, we'll do it the next week, just like we did now. And I really encourage you to be a part of this. I'm going to tell you, I told you I went to medical school 30 years ago. I'll tell you a lot of the things that I do in my office and a lot of the things that I do now, it is because a patient asked me about a certain topic. And instead of just brushing her off, saying, they're just trying to be difficult, asking me all these questions. No, I actually would kind of go and investigate it. And a lot of the things that I've learned is because a patient asked me a question, and I decided to try and find out more, really to help the patient, but it's really helped me and helped develop me in my practice. So please ask questions, please comment. I will look at all of the comments, I promise you. All right, so let's look at this. All right, why did I start this podcast? Well, 2 or 3 reasons. One, I'm going to be 65 this year, and my patients started asking me when I was going to retire. And I said, I hadn't even thought about retiring. I hadn't even thought about retiring. And I'm like, why in the world would I retire at 65? I'm at the point now where I know more than I've ever known. I've discovered things that I've never even thought that I would be discovering or doing. Why in the world would I retire? Now, the other thing is the patients were saying, well, when you go, who's going to be doing the saliva testing? Who's going to follow me? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I spent 10 years going around, speaking, trying to promote this information. And that was a very inefficient way to do it. And so the reason why I started this, I was like, this is a way that I can continue to teach people even when I'm dead and gone. Okay. And I'm like, I can put this knowledge out here. The other thing is that the patients would come to me and we would get their hormones right. We'd get their cortisol, everything right. Then they would feel great and they would go off for 2 or 3 years, go see another doctor. The other doctor would tell them something totally different. They would try that out, see that it didn't work, come back to me. And I was like, why did you change what we were doing? Everything was working fine. Well, I didn't quite understand. Well, I want to have a platform where they can reference this information all the time. So if a doctor or someone, any healthcare provider or any friend tells them something and it doesn't match some of the information that I'm going to give to you now, that I can extend my learning outside or my teaching outside of my office. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to create a legacy because I'm going to tell you, I look at some videos on YouTube, and some of these guys have been dead. I listened to a song, I Can See Clearly Now by Johnny Nash. That kind of starts off my day. And I listened to Lovely Day by Bill Withers. Those guys are dead and gone, but they inspire me every morning to have a lovely day, to see clearly, make sure I'm thinking clearly. So I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it because this information is important. And I want people to really not just hear it, but actually know it and incorporate it into their lives so that they can, again, take control of their health, because you have to be your own health advocate. You cannot just succumb to the authority figure of a doctor, because authority does not overcome truth and biology and physiology. I don't care what the expert says. is that biology and physiology and quantum physics, those things are ageless. All right. So I think, Rebel, I think it's time for a commercial. Is that correct?
That is so correct, Dr. Taylor.
Yeah.
Everybody stay tuned and we'll be right back.
All right.
We are going to a quick break, so stay with us as we explore the Ageless Blueprint right here on W4HC Radio and Talk4 TV. An ancient secret with a modern twist for better health and vitality. Dr. Taylor will be right back. Taking care of your health shouldn't mean taking a handful of pills every day. At Taylor MD Formulations, they create doctor-developed supplements that combine the best natural ingredients so you get the results you need with fewer pills. Taylor MD Formulations is backed by science, designed for real life with real results. Less pills, better health, doctor approved. Shop now at TaylorMDFormulations.com and discover smarter supplements for smarter health. That's TaylorMDFormulations.com. We are back for more of Ageless Blueprint. Once again, let's join Dr. Taylor for more insights and research on the ancient secret to better health and a better life in modern times. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Yeah, you're probably wondering, like, why does he have all this Egyptian imagery and music and everything? Well, in December of 2024, my wife and I went to Egypt, and that picture there is a guy named Remy. We were in Petra, and that's not even in Egypt, that's in Jordan. That's where they filmed Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's an amazing place. But that's Remy. And he taught me the blueprint, the ageless blueprint. And let me tell you, I'll just give you, here's the ageless blueprint. The ageless blueprint is balance plus harmony gives you peace. When you're at peace, you can identify your purpose. It helps you to create your blueprint. And then when you have your blueprint, not a blueprint from your childhood, not a blueprint from society, not a blueprint, that was created by someone else, but when you get in touch with yourself and find out your purpose, then that's where you have longevity and vitality. I'm telling you is that now that I have this purpose of I'm going to develop this podcast and these other learning avenues of distribution, learning distribution avenues, I cannot wait to get up in the morning. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning. I mean, so at 65, I have been reborn because I learned how to create a new blueprint, and you can do the same thing. So anyway, we went to Egypt, and I found out that that blueprint is ageless. If you look at, we went into all these temples and tombs, and the hieroglyphics are not just artwork. They are actually showing us a blueprint for life. And Remy has lived, his family has lived in the caves in Petra for 500 years. His grandmother just passed away. She was 102, 103. And that's how they live. They live in balance and harmony with nature, with the cosmos, with quantum physics, and they survive without any of, you're talking about being materialistic. He has no material, he doesn't have TVs and refrigerators and all those. He lives in the caves and he lives just fine. And they live a peaceful, harmonious life together in that community. And that just showed me that if we can create that balance and harmony, and how do you do that? Well, you have to balance your body, you have to balance your mind, and you have to balance your spirit. I have been taught to balance the body, to look at the body is, that's we go through anatomy and physiology. It's all about the body. But then I also had this other part of me that was talking about spirit. That was my father and going to church and all this. And those two things, the body is very scientific, and spirituality, I thought, was not scientific. But I am learning that science can explain spirituality. And that is what we're going to talk about here because, in Chinese medicine, they first honor the spirit, then that moves to the mind, and then we move to the body. Now, I was going at it backwards, but the problem is it's very hard to make the body whole if you don't manage your mind and if you don't connect to the spirit, to a higher power, however you want to talk about that. And then you can also talk about this spirit in a scientific way. And that's where quantum physics comes along. And this is what we're going to get to as we go along. But this ageless blueprint, and when you talk about a blueprint, and there's a blueprint for everything, creation follows a blueprint. And we're going to talk about this sacred geometry. There's a great uh, show called Sacred Geometry. I mean, it's mind blowing. Is that all of creation followed a blueprint based on these five shapes, and they are called ethereal shapes. They're sacred shapes, but all of creation followed a blueprint. Okay, so anything that was created has to have a blueprint. Okay, you have a genetic blueprint and it made you. But where did that blueprint come from? That blueprint, it came from energy. We're all energy. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. But you can create whatever blueprint you want. You can create the rest of your life. You just have to be conscious of your blueprint that you have now, figure out what you want to change in that blueprint, be clear about what you want to change and how you want to change it. Clarity is what gives you the blueprint. So I did this course called Reality Creator. And he said, first, you have to become aware of your habits, your thoughts, your actions. Then you have to be clear about what thoughts, behaviors, and actions are not serving you anymore. And you have to have new thoughts, behaviors, and actions. Okay. So that is how you change your blueprint. Okay. Because that blueprint you have is hardwired. And I'm telling you, when you become aware of all of the things that you're doing subconsciously and you bring it up to the conscious mind, then you can start to change it because now you're aware. Because you're doing 90% of what you're doing unconsciously. You get up, you take your shower, you brush your teeth, you go get your coffee, you get in the car, you go to the office, you get irritated at the office, you start talking about your coworkers at the office, you go home, you tell your husband or your wife about them, then you watch TV, you eat dinner, and nothing ever changes. And you wonder why nothing changes because you're not aware of the routines that you have. Now, there's routines can be good and they can be beneficial to you. Our routines can really lead you to a path of nowhere where your life becomes meaningless and boring because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So if you want something different, you can't be connected to your past and you can't predict your future because you're thinking, oh, tomorrow's going to be the same way. So what what these reality creator or there's several of them, but what you have to do is you have to take this present moment and you have to start changing from right now, and you have to try and disconnect from the past and not predict what you think is going to happen in the future, and just let life happen and you start to create what you want your future to be. All right. So that's what we're gonna do. Now I will tell you, in December when I went to Egypt, we went for 3 weeks. Now in October is when I took this course to try and change my reality because I did not want to have a future of where I was going to be feeble, get knee replacements, get stents in my heart, start to slow down as I got older. I just didn't want that. I saw that in my parents, the last 10 or 15 years of their life, they took a course downhill. I said, I want to ascend into my quote unquote golden years. So I decided to do that. And what I had to do was to get over a lot of my fears. I had to disconnect from this future of being in assisted living and having Alzheimer's, because that's what people are fearful of. And what you are afraid of is bound to come upon you. If you keep thinking about what you don't want, it's more than likely you're going to get it, because whatever you focus on, that's what you are going to create in your reality. So I decided I'm not going to do that. So I decided in October of 2024, I was going to be a different person. It didn't take it didn't take 20 years of therapy to change. It took a decision at that present moment that I was going to change, and I got over my fears. And one of the fears that I had was I can't leave my office for 3 weeks. I'm not going to be able to make any money. What am I going to do? I got over that fear. I wanted to go to Egypt because I wanted to understand spirituality. They saw spirituality as a science. They thought that science was seen spirituality and spirituality was unseen science. So as a scientist and someone spiritual raised up in a Baptist minister's household, I wanted to see how they connected. And it was life changing for me. Okay. And that's when I came up with that name, Ageless Blueprint. I really didn't know all of the different meanings it could have, but I'd learned that they had a blueprint. It's called the laws of Mayat. I can tell you about all those. And I'll tell you that uh, what you learn over is that they were not worshiping different gods. They saw that there was one source, there was one God, and that all of nature is just an expression of God. And that is a beautiful way of, of thinking about this, is that everything is an expression of God. All of the beautiful flowers that are, and the all of the blooming bushes that are going on, that's all an expression of God, and you are an expression of God. And so that really changed the way I think about almost everything. And the courage it took for me to go over there for 3 weeks and not worry about anything, not worry about my patients, not worried about my finances. It was very freeing. It was very liberating, is to actually do what something that I felt in my gut I needed to do. And I did it, and it just felt so right. So that is why I'm talking about this ageless blueprint. So next, I think we have another commercial coming up here soon. But next, I'm going to tell you about what to expect, kind of the things that I want to talk about going forward. At least for the first 4 episodes, I really want to talk about the foundations. I've been called the spit doctor, the hormone doctor, because I really, really believe in salivary testing to answer some questions that I couldn't answer in a 4-year residency and in 7 years of practice in OBGYN. And I actually did a Zoom meeting for this platform that tries to teach doctors. And the person who I was talking to was actually from Croatia, and I did my little spiel about salivary testing, and she was like, "Oh wow, I've never heard about this in Croatia, and this sounds so exciting." And it is. And I am so grateful for technology that I can now talk about some of these fundamentals. And instead of it being one patient at a time, or if I go to a seminar and I speak to 200 people at a time, I'm hoping that over the course of time, that my information about salivary testing and stress and hormone balance, someone can reference that 40 years from now. Now, I may be living 40 years from now, who knows? But just in case, I have this, on file. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about this. So, hey, Rebel, it's almost 9:35, right? And so it's another commercial. And I want to make sure if there's any questions, you can stop me like 5 minutes before we end, and I'll try and answer some questions. And then when we come back, I'll talk more about what you can expect in the future.
Sounds wonderful. Let's go to a commercial break.
Okay.
We are going to a quick break, so stay with us as we explore the Ageless Blueprint right here on W4HC Radio and Talk4 TV. An ancient secret with a modern twist for better health and vitality. Dr. Taylor will be right back. Taking care of your health shouldn't mean taking a handful of pills every day. At Taylor MD Formulations, they create doctor-developed supplements that combine the best natural ingredients so you get the results you need with fewer pills. Taylor MD Formulations is backed by science, designed for real life with real results. Less pills, better health, doctor approved. Shop now at TaylorMDFormulations.com and discover smarter supplements for smarter health. That's TaylorMDFormulations.com. We are back for more of Ageless Blueprint. Once again, let's join Dr. Taylor for more insights and research on the ancient secret to better health and a better life in modern times. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Okay, we're back. So I wanted to kind of give you a preview of what you can expect. Now I'm a physician, I practice holistic medicine, but this is not hey, which is the best diet and what is the best exercise program. You can it's 10 million people on the YouTube who can talk about that. I want to talk about deeper health topics or deeper holistic type topics. We're not going to talk about we can talk about plant-based diets, whatever. We'll talk about nutrition and how that affects the body, but I really want to talk about some deeper things. Again, I'm going to be 65. I was raised by a Baptist minister, the youngest of six kids, and I think it's so important to connect with the spiritual part of it because whether you want to say it or not, everybody has the fear of death. That is the number one fear. Okay. Now, you have basic human needs, but all of those human needs are really tied into the fear of death. Okay. y- your body wants to survive and to thrive. All right. And in order to survive and thrive, one, you have to have reproduction. Okay. So one of the needs is that if we don't reproduce, our whole species will die out. All right. The other part is that you want safety and security because if you aren't safe and secure, you're worried about someone coming in and killing you, or animal. If you're thinking about just basic instincts, a predator come in and can kill you. So you want to be safe. The other one is that we want status. Okay. The reason why we want status, we want to be a part of the community because if we don't have a certain status, we may be shunned from the community and we'll be left to die. All right. So you have to get over all of those fears. Okay. And I think the best way to do that is through spirituality, is to understand where we came from and where we're going. Okay. And I know everybody has different beliefs about that. And that's great. And I think all of those beliefs, I'm talking about religious beliefs about heaven or paradise or purgatory or whatever those things are, whatever you think or believe, but we're all thinking about where did we come from? And we know that this is just a transitory state. And then where do we go from here? And that's what we want to discuss. I'm not going to, try and prove anything to you, but I'm just going to, I want to talk about how science is dealing with that. And modern science is starting to figure this out. And it's primarily figuring it out by understanding that we're all energy. Everything in the universe came from this energetic field, and when it decomposes it goes back into that energetic field. Okay. It's a it's not a difficult concept, it's just a different concept. Okay, but that's what science is saying. All right, now you can choose not to believe science. That's your choice, that's free will. You can choose not to believe it, but just because you don't believe it or you're not aware of it does not mean it does not exist or that it is not true. I learned that with saliva tests. I had patients that they don't believe in saliva testing. Not patients, but doctors. Well, you can believe in what you want to. You can believe that blood tests tell you something. That's fine. You can believe it. It still does not make it true. And just because you're not aware of it doesn't mean it does not exist. All right. So we're going to talk about these deeper things. Then the other thing I want to really impress upon you is how much your mind controls your body and how your mind controls your external environment. There's something called the mirror principle. The mirror principle says that your reality is just a reflection of your inner state. Okay. So if your inner person or if your inner state is chaotic, you're going to have a chaotic reality. Okay. But once you settle in on your inner peace, that's why peace is so important, then your reality can become peaceful and it can become something that you want and not something that is s- not something that you don't want. Okay? Because even though your inner being or you may be stressed, you're not intentionally trying to create a stressful environment. But even though you're not intentionally doing it, it's happening anyway. Just just think about it. When you are in a unsettled state, everything around you seems to be unsettled. You're like, why is all this stuff happening to me? I can't believe this happened, that happened, this happened. Because that's what you're thinking about. You've created it inwardly, and your external world will reflect that back to you. Okay? It's like you can't look at the mirror and expect it to smile when you have a frown on your face. Okay? So you have to be what you want your external environment to be. All right. So if you want to have a peaceful, stable external environment, you've got to have a peaceful, stable internal environment. And what disrupts that? When you're out of balance and you're out of harmony. Your body works in harmony. Every cell in your body is working in harmony with another cell. Your liver cells have to work in harmony with your intestinal cells, and that has to work in harmony with your cardiovascular system. That has to work in harmony with your mental system. Everything is about balance and harmony. And if you are inwardly out of balance and out of harmony, your external world is going to continue to be out of balance. So that's why we are going to work on this inner state. We're going to work on the spirit, the mind, and then see how that affects the body instead of me trying to teach you what to do with your body. All right. So that is, I hope I'm getting across how this is going to be a little bit different because once you see yourself as different, and you open your mind and allow yourself to have different thoughts, to receive different information. Because if you're closed minded, nothing's going to change. I hope you're happy with your life because the only way you're going to see a different future is you have to open up your mind and allow information to come in. You have to be receptive of that information, be able to apply that information. And that's what I want to help you to do is I'm going to give you information and I want you to be able to apply it and for it to change your life. There's no need of reading a book or listening to a podcast or any of that if it doesn't do something for you. So I want to make sure it does something for you. So, Rebel, I don't want to. Do we have any questions or is anything that you think I need to talk about? Because uh, the reason why I have this scrolling underneath here is that I'm creating, and I've already started creating, is this school group. That's where I learned a lot of my informations from these different uh, courses on this platform. And I was like, this is just what I need. There, I'm going to have information for you. I told you already the books are there. but there's a community there where I usually at least 3 or 4 times a week I post something. It's called the Mind of Dr. Taylor, and I just try and take you on this journey that I've been on for the last 6, 7, 8 months of rediscovering who I am and who I could be. Even at 64, I know a lot of people, well, I'm too old. You're never too old to teach an old dog new tricks. Okay. I'm so excited about my future at 64. You just wouldn't believe how excited I am. All right. So at that on that school group, right now it's just mostly a community, but we are building a course, and we're going to have different levels according to where you are. We can start off with the body, and then we're going to go toward the mind, and then we're going to go to the spirit. And the reason why I go there because people are usually more familiar with that track. Even though it's better to start from the spirit, we're just going to have to work backwards. Now, some people may want to start there, but we want to start with the foundation and then we're going to move from there. So,
That sounds
so
wonderful.
yeah. So, do we
Absolutely.
have any questions at all?
We do. First one came
Okay.
from Jennifer.
hmm
How long how long does it take to do the saliva test, and how long does it take to see change and results?
Okay. So, what you would do is over the course of the day, you would collect 4 samples, usually about 2 or 3 cc's, like a teaspoonful, really. And over the course of the I'm sorry, 4 samples over the course of the day. And next episode, I'm going to really explain this. And so you will do that. You'll send it into the lab. It takes 2 weeks for the results to come back, and then we will see. And I'll show you some examples next week. It's very simple. You can see your estrogen level and your progesterone level. Those are the two big ones for women. All right. Progesterone should be 200 times whatever your estrogen is. So if your estrogen is 1, your progesterone should be 200. And we just look at that ratio. If you don't have enough progesterone, we give you progesterone to create that ratio. And I'm going to tell you, it's according to how bad your symptoms are, but people begin to feel different within a week just by bringing those two hormones back into balance. If you're a woman, all right. In a man, a lot of times it may be testosterone, but a lot of times it's a cortisol issue, and in women also. So we'll also see your cortisol curve, and I'll show you some examples of that next week. But it's really quick and it's really simple. It's not that expensive. If most insurances aren't going to pay for it, but some will. But to just look at the female hormones is $135. If you look at female hormones and cortisol, or men hormones and cortisol, it's 275. But I'm going to tell you, once we have that information, then you can stop with the trial and error. You've tried this, you tried that, we'll know exactly what's going on. We will replace the hormones with bioidentical hormones. So that means they're just like what your body is used to dealing with. So there's very minimal to no side effects as long as you maintain that ratio. All right. And we'll talk about that in depth. That's what the next episode is going to be about. All right. Have
Okay, then.
another question?
Yes, the next question is from Taylor. Can we get all
Mm.
in balance at the same time to do this blueprint?
When you say the same time, so here's how the blueprint works. So first we figure out we're going to get your hormones in balance. That means estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and cortisol. Right? Then there's another level where we look at these different systems. It's a test called True Diagnostics. You take some blood, really it's just a finger stick, and we look at epigenetics. Epigenetics means what genes are turned on in you. And what we can do is we can see what system is aging you prematurely. Is it that your gut is out of balance? Is that what's aging you? Is it that your mental capacity is out of balance? Is that what's aging you? And now we know which one is accelerating your aging. And now we can focus on that particular system to get that back in balance. All right. So I believe in the, I believe that you have to measure things in order to manage them. So we can measure what your gut environment is. We can measure what your stress is. We can measure heart rate variability. We can do heart math. We want to measure things. Then we can manage it. then we can remeasure it and make sure you're in balance. The only way to know you're in balance is that you have to measure something. You have to put something on one side of the scale and another on the other side of the scale and see if it balances. If you don't measure it, there's no way to balance it. That was my problem with OBGYN. We never measured hormones. So how could you balance them? So we're going to always measure, manage, and remeasure.
That sounds wonderful.
Hmm.
Everybody, we are unfortunately out of time. So, Don, Kelly, and Pam, we haven't gotten to your questions. I'll give your questions to Dr. Taylor and he'll cover them next week. But
And please sign up for my school group. Right now it's free. In a few weeks, it's going to be actually paid to get that education. So sign up now. Uh, Please see us next week. We look forward to continuing this and see you next week.
Thanks for joining Dr. Taylor today. If you missed any part of this show, just check out the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Ageless Blueprint is every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. Together, we discover the ancient secrets to better health through science and spirituality made for modern times. Until then, feel free to check out agelessblueprintpodcast.com and taylormdformulations.com for more information.